7 signs of a bad fuel pump and what it may feel like before your car leaves you stranded. Your car may not fail all at once. That is what makes fuel pump problems tricky. At first, the car still starts. It still moves. It still feels mostly normal. But then small things begin to change. The engine hesitates. Acceleration feels weaker. Power disappears when you need it most. And sometimes the warning signs show up long before the car refuses to start. That is why this problem is easy to ignore at first, until one day you are stuck on the side of the road, wondering why the engine cranks, but the car will not run. The fuel pump has one very important job. It sends fuel from the tank to the engine at the pressure the engine needs. If that flow becomes weak, inconsistent, or unstable, the engine can no longer get the fuel supply it depends on. And once that happens, performance starts to suffer. In this video, I'll show you 7 common signs of a bad fuel pump. We will start with the early warning signs, then move into the more serious symptoms, and stay until the end, because the last sign on this list is often the one that shows up just before the fuel pump fails completely. So before you replace random parts, let's break it down step by step. Sign number 1. The engine sputters or jerks at higher speed. This is often one of the first signs that something is wrong. You are driving normally, everything feels fine. Then suddenly the engine cuts in and out. The car jerks, it hesitates. It feels like the power comes back, then disappears again. This usually happens because the fuel pump is no longer delivering fuel in a steady, reliable way. At low demand, the engine may still manage, but at higher speed, fuel demand stays higher, and if the pump cannot keep up, the engine starts to stumble. At first, this may only happen once in a while, maybe during a longer drive, maybe when cruising at highway speed. But over time, it often becomes more frequent. And once that pattern starts, it should not be ignored, because it usually means the pump is getting weaker. Sign number 2. The car loses power when you try to accelerate. This is one of the clearest signs. You press the gas pedal, expecting the car to move forward smoothly, but instead, the response is weak, delayed, flat. The engine may sound like it wants to work, but the car does not pull the way it should. This happens because acceleration requires more fuel. The engine suddenly asks for more. If the pump cannot supply it fast enough, the engine feels starved, and when the engine is starved of fuel, power drops. This is why many drivers say the car feels lazy, slow, or unresponsive. Sometimes it feels like the engine is holding back. Sometimes it feels like the car is about to stall from a stop. If that weak acceleration keeps happening, especially without another obvious cause, the fuel pump becomes a strong suspect. Sign number 3. The car struggles uphill or under load. This sign tells you something important. The problem usually gets worse when the engine has to work harder, driving uphill, carrying passengers, towing weight, or even using heavy throttle, all increase the engine's fuel demand. A weak fuel pump may still be able to support light driving on flat roads, but once the load increases, the weakness becomes obvious. You may notice the car losing speed uphill. You may press the pedal harder, but the extra power just does not come. The engine may feel strained. The vehicle may feel heavy and reluctant. This difference between flat road driving and loaded driving is a useful clue, because it shows the fuel system may be struggling when demand rises. And that is exactly what a failing fuel pump does. Sign number 4. The engine suddenly surges for no clear reason. Now, this one confuses a lot of people, because instead of only losing power, the car may sometimes do the opposite. For a few moments, it may suddenly feel like it speeds up on its own. Not because you pressed the pedal harder, but because fuel delivery became unstable. A worn fuel pump does not always fail in one clean, predictable way. Sometimes, as internal parts wear unevenly, fuel pressure rises and falls inconsistently. That uneven pressure can make the engine surge, so the car may briefly feel stronger, then return to normal, then feel weak again later. That unstable behavior is the key. The vehicle no longer feels smooth or predictable, and when that happens, the pump may already be wearing out internally. Sign number 5. The engine is hard to start. As fuel pump performance drops, starting the car can become more difficult. You turn the key or press the start button. The engine cranks, but it takes longer than usual to fire up. Sometimes it starts on the second try. Sometimes it starts but feels rough for a moment. That usually means the engine is not getting fuel pressure quickly enough. A healthy fuel pump helps build pressure so the engine can start properly, but a weak pump may take longer, and that long crank time is often one of the clearest signs that the fuel system is struggling. Of course, hard starting can also come from other issues, but if it happens together with weak acceleration or sputtering, the fuel pump becomes much more likely. Sign number 6. You hear a whining sound from the fuel tank area. This is a warning sign many people overlook. A healthy fuel pump is usually quiet. You normally do not notice it, but as it wears out, it can become louder. You may hear a high-pitched whining, a steady humming, or an unusual electric sound coming from the rear of the vehicle, especially near the tank. That sound often means the pump is working harder than it should. Sometimes it happens because the pump is aging. Sometimes it happens because fuel flow is restricted or the pump is under stress. Not every whining sound means the pump is definitely bad, but if that noise appears together with other symptoms, it becomes a much stronger warning sign. So if your car suddenly develops a strange sound from the tank area, pay attention, because the fuel pump may be telling you it is close to failing. Sign number 7. The engine cranks, but the car will not start. This is often the final stage. By this point, the warning signs may already have been there. Weak acceleration, sputtering, hard starts, whining noise. And now, the pump finally stops doing its job. The engine may still crank because the battery and starter are working. But without fuel reaching the engine, combustion cannot happen. That means the car will not start. This is the moment many drivers realize the earlier symptoms were not small at all. They were warnings, and once the pump fully fails, the car is usually not going anywhere until the issue is repaired. Now, some vehicles may also show other possible signs along the way. For example, fuel economy may get worse, or performance may become inconsistent. But those signs are less specific because other problems can cause them too. That is why the most useful signs are usually the ones we just covered: sputtering, power loss, weak performance under load, surging, hard starting, whining noise, and finally, a no start condition. So what should you do if you think the fuel pump is going bad? First, do not guess blindly, because fuel pump symptoms can look similar to other problems. A clogged fuel filter, injector trouble, airflow issues, or sensor faults can sometimes create similar behavior. That is why diagnosis matters. Start by paying attention to when the symptom happens. Does it happen at high speed? Only during acceleration? Only uphill? Does the car start hard? Is there a noise from the tank? Those details matter. If possible, have fuel pressure checked properly, because fuel pressure testing can tell you very quickly whether the pump is keeping up or falling behind. That is much smarter than replacing parts one by one and hoping the problem disappears. So let's quickly recap. A bad fuel pump may cause engine sputtering at higher speed, loss of power during acceleration, weak performance uphill or under load, engine surging, hard starting, a whining sound from the fuel tank, and eventually a crank no start condition. Some of these signs begin small, some only show up under stress, and some do not appear until the pump is already near failure. That is why early attention matters, because if you catch the problem early, you may avoid getting stranded, and you may avoid wasting money chasing the wrong repair. And now I want to hear from you. What was the first sign your car showed? Did it hesitate, lose power, struggle uphill, make noise from the tank? Comment below with the exact symptom you noticed first, and if enough people mention the same issue, I'll make the next video on that exact problem.